Okay, so watching through that last video, well, basically editing it, I was thinking a few other things that I wanted to say on this topic. And one is that paintings are fun things because they are art, right? So it's usually stuff that's in museums, stuff that is, right, hanging on walls for you to look at, for you to enjoy. Usually you would go towards a painting because you want to see it and because you want to enjoy it in some way, right? So I would argue that there is something about a place filled with paintings that is a place of enjoyment. And again, that usually we would go towards those paintings, as Mario does, right? He goes towards the paintings. He doesn't ignore them. They're not just passing decoration. They are the central aim of his focus. He goes towards the painting because the painting is beautiful, I would argue, right? Because it's art. It represents something like that. And so in that way, you could say that it is something beautiful that lures Mario towards a ghost, maybe, or something that's not there, something that's invisible. Because in some way, everyone, Peach, the Toads, and so on, are trapped, as they say in the manual, inside the walls of the castle, inside the paintings. So Toad and Peach and so on are invisible to the naked eye. They're invisible to Mario. They are therefore someone invisible, someone who can't be seen. Right? Peach materializes at the end of the game, literally. She stops being a painting and starts actually being someone. And so it almost feels as if, therefore, before they materialize as real people, Toads and Peach are just ghosts in some way, just spirits. They are not material. Right? That's I think the whole point of them being materialized at the end of the game is that they weren't materialized before. Therefore, they were the opposite of materialized, which I think would be spirit in this case. So you're jumping into the painting, which is something, again, that would hang in a museum. So the kind of art that you would go to because you want to go to it, because you like it, because you like art, you like beautiful things, flowers, etc. You would go towards it. And within it, you encounter something that was invisible, that wasn't seen before. You see the painting, and then you see something you hadn't seen before, which was Peach, Toad, everyone who's hiding inside the painting, right? Everyone that's hiding behind the painting, you see by looking at it, by looking at this beautiful artistic thing. But then it seems as if perhaps this spirit that you're seeing is precisely the same kind of spirit that you would encounter in something like Boo. That is to say, a ghost, something scary, something typical of the horror movie tropes. So that you're going towards something that's scary, in fact. Like once you encounter it, it's a scary experience. Therefore, an experience that you in some way didn't want. Right? So it reminds me of Mario running towards the painting of Peach in the first Bowser encounter, right, where he's running towards the painting of Peach, and it's something that he wants. He wants to run towards Peach. That's the whole aim of the game. But then that's what lures him towards that painting. But when he gets closer to it, it turns out to be Bowser, or it turns out to include within itself something about Bowser. And so Mario ends up sort of falling into Bowser's world and has to face Bowser and has to experience Bowser. That wasn't Mario's plan. Mario's plan was to go and have a fun experience, was to go and have an evening with Peach, right, and have some cake or something. So it was supposed to be a fun experience, and it ends up being an unwanted experience, an experience that's difficult and scary, like facing Bowser would be, So it's like there's this sort of gradient between art, paintings, as something beautiful that lures you towards it, or, like in the case of the main story, cake, a tea party, or as the subtext, like some sort of a romantic feelings between Mario and Peach, or romantic feelings from Mario towards Peach of some kind, right? So there is this sort of a desire to go in that direction, and it ends up making Mario encounter something that he actually didn't want to face. But I think the implication, to me, in this sort of a switch, is not that this is like a mistake. Like, oh, I wanted to go in this direction and, by mistake, I ended up falling into Bowser's trap. No. Because I feel like the game is highlighting, again and again, this sense that these two poles are somehow connected. So in the act of facing that which you wanted to face, you face that which you didn't want to face, you could say. So it's like precisely in order for Mario to face this beautiful thing that he wanted to face, within that experience is included the experience of facing something that he didn't want to face. Okay, so I feel like something like that is going on. Now, other things. What lures Mario towards this, again, the whole experience, comes from language. Because Mario gets a letter from Peach, and that's what drives him towards his adventure. So he gets an invitation from Peach, which is language, words. It's also an invitation, so it's saying, okay, come towards here, come towards me. And it's an invitation, so it's not just dead text on a piece of paper. It's a person addressing Mario. So it's an other person saying to Mario, come towards me and meet me. I am an other person. I feel like that's what drives Mario in this direction often. I mean, in this game. And so I was wondering whether there isn't something to this in the game as a whole, because in some way language, communication with another, has something to do, I feel, with meaning. Like, it's a meaningful sentence, right? Peach sends Mario a meaningful letter. Mario understands what that letter means. In order for Mario to understand what that letter means, Mario needs to find meaning in those letters, the letters that Peach has used to communicate, right? So, language, those little scribbly things on the paper, right? And so what Mario is doing in some primitive kind of way, right? I mean primitive in the sense of like the bare bricks of what is happening here, I think, is that there are pictures on a page and Mario's looking at them. And those pictures have meaning, right? So there's a letter A, a letter B, a letter C, and those letters are little scribblings on a piece of paper. Mario sees those scribblings, those paintings, those drawings in some way, and he finds meaning in them. He understands what they mean. And what they mean is an invitation from another person. It's another person addressing him. So it's not just, again, dead paint on a page. It's dead paint on a page that reflects the will of another person to see Mario. So another person is behind those letters. I think this is maybe another meaning of the sense immaterial in this game, and of perhaps of the sense spirit, because see, behind that letter is a real person, let's say a materialized person. But that materialized person is not, let's say, present in that piece of paper, or is not exhausted by that piece of paper, is not entirely present in that piece of paper. The piece of paper points towards a real person, but it's not the entirety of that real person, right? And maybe that's what we mean when we say that there is a ghost behind art, or like any sort of symbolic meaning-making mechanism like this, is that there is a person behind that meaning, but that person is not entirely there. That's what makes them in some way invisible to the eye, and therefore some sort of a ghost, maybe. I feel like maybe something like that is going on. And so it's almost as if, see, after reading that letter, Mario goes into the castle and sees a bunch of paintings and spends his whole journey just looking at paintings and going into paintings and exploring what's inside those paintings. So in some way, there's something about observing a set of scribbles on a piece of paper, or a canvas in this case, and understanding them. They are meaningful. It's not a chaotic world. It means something. It's a mountain, it's a river, it's filled with bob-ombs, whatever, right? It's comprehensible. Mario knows what it is and where he is. Oh, I'm in a battlefield. Oh, I'm in a mountain. Oh, I'm under the sea. So you look at that painting and you see what that painting is pointing to, and you understand what it's pointing to. Right? I feel also that partly what leads me to think this way is this whole like obsession there is in this game with light, and in other Mario games, right? Because what you're doing in those paintings, again, there seems to be this constant interplay between light, the star as the symbol of light, as something that emanates light, and therefore, yeah, just shines light, and then darkness, right? The game makes this thing explicitly because Bowser's two worlds are Bowser in the dark world and then Bowser in the sky, which is okay. A sky could be a dark place, but I feel like the game is constantly making these sort of distinctions, right? Peach's castle again has got mountains painted on the walls of the ground floor, so the whole castle is a painting in that way, and then has skies and clouds painted on the top floors. So there are constantly these sort of allusions to, I think, darkness and light. The murkiness of water, as I was saying in other videos, right? The murkiness of water, the paintings as water, as murky water, that then light illuminates. So it's light shining into the darkness, I think, is what this game is constantly talking about. This interplay between like Mario being in the underworld, Mario being a plumber who exists down in the depths, right? And Mario coming out of those depths towards the light and discovering the light. Is the light then used in this game as something that represents the clarifying of murky territory, right? There is murky territory, and the light clarifies murky territory. It lets you see what is there, which you didn't see before. I feel like that process of shining light onto a murky territory and then seeing what is there is very close to a process of understanding. It's very close to a process of awareness in that way. It's you're not aware of something, and then you're aware of it. And it's in this process of like understanding that I feel that some of this game is some of what this game is doing resides in the terrain of meaning, right? And meaning, in this specific case, that is sensorially perceived. So in this case, we're talking about light and vision. But I think that it's sensorially in general. It's the fact that your senses like perceive something. In the case of Mario, he perceives with his eyes paintings on the wall or letters on a page. And those senses, what he perceives, they mean something. There is some sort of a meaning that's derived from it, an understanding. They are paintings that represent other things. They are letters that represent other things. And Peach herself ends up being like a real person that is represented by the paintings of her, as like the end of the game sort of shows. So there is something about meaning happening, I feel, in this game. There is some sort of domain of meaning. And so, yeah, there's some sort of domain of meaning. Right, I guess that's my basic sort of bare argument, which I can't really make much better at the moment, but it's my sort of argument for saying that when you're looking at the paintings in this game and entering into the painting serves as a meaning-making symbol. It's, let's say, connected to the stars and therefore connected to illumination, perception, perceiving things that weren't seen before. And this murkiness that the perception shines through is often in this game connected to areas that you didn't know you could access. So there is a sort of an issue of secrets that are revealed by the light, connected to the whole world of this game. Which, again, makes me feel that when we're talking about paintings, we're not simply talking about beautiful, fun, decorative elements, but also about symbol, and therefore, like, meaning. And again, I think that this is very, like, symbolically expressed by the game. Okay. If that is the case, then I can't help feeling that there is something about the paintings in Mario 64 that is constantly alluding to the same thing. They're not entirely separate paintings. They're not just like a painting of a snow mountain and a painting of a bay and a painting of a cave. It's not like entirely separate areas that have nothing to do with one another. I feel that there are themes in these areas that resonate amongst them and that therefore point towards one single kind of picture at the center, and that therefore some sort of an awareness about this picture is being had through this game by Mario, or that I feel like something like that is happening. That Mario exploring these paintings is perceiving a greater kind of picture. And then when this greater picture is perceived Peach materializes, and it's the end of the game. I think this greater picture emerges from, again, okay, so the conjunction of the different levels. Let's look at the different levels. Just a second. So we have, I've spoken of some of these patterns, but some of these patterns are like mountain. There are a lot of mountains. Right? There are a lot of different mountains, and there are a few of those mountains that have some sort of a king, or the sovereign ruler of the mountain is encountered at the top of the mountain. This happens, as far as I can tell, at least in Bob-omb Battlefield. You have the King Bob-omb at the top of the mountain. Thwomp's Fortress, you have the Thwomp King on the top of the fortress. Then, the others are a little more obscure, but in Tiny Huge Island, you have Wiggler, who seems to be, is a boss battle. So he is like a big, important character in that mountain and lives in the mountain. You could say that he is the prototype of the king who lives in the mountain, the dragon that lives in the mountain, right? So it feels like, in a folklore kind of way, he is the ruler of that mountain. He lives there. It's his house. The mountain is his house. You access it, again, through the entrance at the top of the mountain. So there is some sort of connection between the top of the mountain as the place where you access a confrontation with the king of the mountain, the ruler of the mountain, the representative of the mountain, maybe. And you could even say that this maybe happens in Shifting Sandland, because something similar sort of happens. You encounter within the mountain, in this case the pyramid. So again, you would have to make the leap of thinking that the pyramid is in some way a mountain. That's up for you to decide. I feel like it's not that unlikely if you consider the amount of the amount of peaking structures in this game. Because again, I mean, let's look at it. Bob-omb Battlefield, Thwomp's Fortress, Cool Mountain. Hazy Maze Cave doesn't have a mountain, but it has the same idea of like a mount of some kind that is at the center of the world, right? So it's this central peaking structure, a tiny one in this case. Lethal Lava Land, the same, a central mountainous sort of upward-facing peaking structure, a volcano. Shifting Sandland, the same. It's not exactly in the center of the level, but it's one of the main structures in the level. It's this upwards peaking thing. A tall mountain, Tiny Huge Island, right? So there's a lot of this. And if we consider, again, the Shifting Sandland boss inside the tomb as representing like the ruler of that tomb, or the owner of that tomb, or the god who is inside that tomb, or whatever, then it also sort of echoes this god of the mountain, king of the mountain, ruler of the mountain sort of theme. So again, I feel like this appears again and again. And one thing that to me strikes me at first is that all of these levels evoke essentially what you are doing in the castle itself, right? Which is, I think I've probably said this already, but it's like you're going up the castle. That's the main direction your journey takes. As I said, the castle is decorated as a sky. The walls are painted as an ascending sky, so it makes it very clear that to walk up the castle means to walk up towards the sky, towards something that's up above. There's a highness element, and then you go up and up and up different levels of the castle, and eventually you confront Bowser at the topmost tower of the castle. You confront the king. who is in some ways at the moment the de facto king of the castle, because he has invaded the castle and taken it over. So you confront this king at the top tower of the castle. So that's a very similar structure to ascending a mountain, and at the top or center of the mountain, right? Because the top is somehow the central point in some way, right? Confronting the king. So to me it feels okay, so it's almost as if the paintings are constantly making reference to something that Mario is going to encounter at the end of his adventure. Mario hasn't beaten Bowser yet, like the final Bowser. And yet, from the very first painting, he is encountering this theme of going up the mountain, beating Bowser. Going up the mountain, beating Bowser. That's constantly happening. He's perceiving that again and again. And yet it is something that is yet to come for him. It's in the future for him. Anyway, so I feel like that's one of the things that are echoing throughout these levels. There are probably more that I don't really want to get into now. As I said in another video, there's this whole theme of water, perhaps. Which could be connected to the paintings, in that the paintings themselves are watery surfaces that you're jumping into. See, that would present another puzzle, because it could be then that the paintings themselves are making reference to the paintings. The paintings themselves are saying, look, watery surfaces are things that you jump into in order to discover other things, right? And so it's like the paintings are constantly making reference to this process that you are doing, which is you're going into watery surfaces in order to discover hidden things. And, you know, does it all culminate with Bowser? I think it all culminates with Bowser in that way. So that's interesting, because it feels then like, what if this is communication in some way, right? What if Mario then is receiving some sort of a message? Mario is receiving a message that relates to... what does it relate to? To Bowser being on top of the castle, at the topmost part of the castle. Right? And by a message, I mean that if this is a pattern that exists in these paintings, and Mario is looking at these paintings, then Mario, by perceiving these different paintings and seeing these patterns, is perceiving and therefore acquiring knowledge, perceiving meaning in them, a meaning that points towards something that is happening outside of those paintings. Right? Inside of those paintings, something is being expressed that is happening in the castle itself, in Peach's castle. And something that is what he is involved in at the moment, this process of ascending the castle. Okay, so that's interesting. Let's go back to the boos for a second. So the boos... Okay, yeah, no, this is it. I'll try and go in this direction. There is another theme that emerges in these paintings, apart from the theme of a big mountainous structure with a king on top. There is subtly the theme of a spirit house, or a tomb, or a temple in some way. Okay, where? Big Boo's Haunt is one example, right? It's a house filled with ghosts, filled with spirit. But Shifting Sandland also has a tomb, a pyramid, which is a tomb. So it is a place of dead people as well. So it's a house for the spirits, and in some way maybe for visiting the spirits in some way. Right? It's a sacred temple space. And then Wet Dry World, the abandoned place in Wet Dry World has... Right, in Wet Dry World, in the abandoned town, we have this sort of layout of the town with houses like on either side, and then there's this sort of central square structure in the center of the town that leads, this central square structure leads with some upward staircases to a building that is very evocative of a church. Others have commented on this, right? It's got, like, it seems to not be exactly a house in the way that the other houses are. The other houses are very prototypical houses with a wooden door, windows, and so on. This is more of a entirely open stone structure, no door, and a sort of what looks like a steeple or something on top. Right? So architecturally, you could say that looks like it's inspired by a church. But also in the layout of the town, the fact that it's connected to the central square of the town also makes one think that this is some sort of a central building in this town. It's not any house. It's like the central house. And it's shaped like some sort of a church of some kind. So it's also a house of spirit in the way that a tomb or a temple would be, right? It's a temple, literally. It's a temple. It's a place of, of communion with the gods or something. So you could say, okay, so that theme is appearing here in an interesting way, I feel. This theme of a house of spirit or of contact with spirits. Therefore, a house of contact with that which is invisible, with invisible people. A communication with someone that you can't immediately see in the way that you can see another, like, human being. I find that cool because I think that the game itself, again, it is like that. Peach's Castle is kind of like that. Peach's Castle is very much, I feel, like a church in some way. It's a little less obvious, but it's also got this sort of central tower thing, which, is not really like a steeple, but it's still got this sort of central tower structure. And then on this tower is a stained glass painting of Peach looking towards, like, the heavens. And, a stained glass painting I personally very clearly associate with a church, right? At least like a Christian church. And this game, I think, is taking stylistic, like, aesthetic influence from the kind of, like, Christian, like, fairy tales or something. I feel like that's sort of the world that this game is being influenced by aesthetically. So it's like a Christian style church with this stained glass. And again, to make it even more religious, it's Peach, and she seems to be clasping her hands together in some way and looking upwards towards the sky, which is a very religious sort of gesture to have as well in some way, looking up towards the skies in a stained glass kind of way. So it's kind of funny. And it makes the whole castle look like it's some sort of a spiritual place because it's filled with stained glass windows. And just like that town in Wet Dry World, it is abandoned. It's empty. There's no one there, right? No one's home. And therefore, it's no one's home, but everyone is there. Everyone's there. Everyone's trapped in the paintings, right? Peach, the Toads, everyone, Bowser's troops, they're all inside the paintings. Yeah. So the right, what are the areas, the general areas of this game saying then? They're saying something about a mountainous structure at the top of which you will meet a king who you will defeat. But it's also speaking of the fact that there is a structure that is also some sort of a religious structure where you encounter the divine or a spirit of some kind. And both those things are applied to the castle itself, so they seem to refer to the castle. It's like the paintings are keying you in on the nature of your situation. It's like, okay, this is your situation. You're in a castle that is an upward sort of structure, and you're going to go up, and you're going to meet some sort of a scary figure at the top, a beast, a king, an evil king that you're going to defeat. But also, this is also some sort of a sacred temple place where you're going to encounter some sort of a divine spirit, probably represented also by Peach in this case, as the stained glass kind of figure in this castle. It's like the paintings are keying you in on your situation, saying, okay, this is your situation. You're in a situation that's going to make you confront something really scary and bad that you're not going to want to confront. And you're also going to confront something that's exactly what you want to confront. So anyway, that's interesting. I feel as if the paintings are sort of keying him in on his present situation, despite it being something that is yet to happen in some way. It's something that's yet, it's still in the future for Mario. Okay. That's enough for this, I think. So, yeah, okay, thanks. Thanks for listening. Bye.